You think you're just watching your life happen. But here's what's really going on. Every time you look at something, you're not just seeing it, you're creating it. This isn't some feel-good idea. This is what quantum physics keeps proving over and over, and it's freaking scientists out. Right now, your awareness is taking endless possibilities and locking them into the one reality you're living. Most people do this on autopilot, collapsing the same old struggles day after day. But what if you learn to observe differently? What if the very act of paying attention could become your superpower? This video reveals how the top 1% use observation to bend reality itself. You're about to understand why everything you see is actually something you're building.
You're standing at the edge of something that will completely reshape how you understand your relationship with reality. This isn't about abstract philosophy or wishful thinking. This is rooted in the most puzzling discovery in quantum physics that continues to baffle scientists to this very day. If you're watching this video right at this exact moment, your awareness has arrived at a place where this understanding can land without short-circuiting everything you thought you knew. What we call the observer paradox isn't just another spiritual concept to add to your collection. This is the master key that explains why certain individuals appear to exist in an entirely different dimension of experience than those around them. They encounter meaningful coincidences constantly. Resources and connections seem to find them without struggle. When they walk into a space, the entire atmosphere shifts. And all of this traces back to a single mind-blowing revelation about how observation actually functions. Let me take you back to 1927, when Werner Heisenberg stumbled onto something that completely demolished our understanding of how things work. What he discovered was that simply watching a particle fundamentally transforms how it behaves, not just nudges it slightly, but completely changes it. That particle actually exists in every possible condition at the same time until awareness shows up to watch it. Only then does it snap into one specific form. But here's the part they conveniently leave out of standard physics courses. This principle doesn't stop at tiny particles you can't see with your eyes. Right now, in every single moment of your existence, your awareness is taking endless possibilities and turning them into the one reality you're living. The real question isn't if you're shaping your world through how you pay attention. The question is whether you're doing this on purpose or letting it happen by default. As you take in these words right now, billions upon billions of quantum events are unfolding inside your brain. Every time your neurons fire, quantum processes are at work. Every single thought bubbles up from fluctuations in the quantum field. Your consciousness isn't sitting outside of quantum mechanics watching it happen. It's running on quantum mechanics every single millisecond you're alive. Think about this reality-bending fact for a second. Before you direct your attention toward anything, it sits in what scientists describe as a superposition existing in multiple states all at once. That mug of coffee on your table isn't just sitting there being solid when you're not looking at it. Based on quantum mechanics, it exists as a cloud of potential until your attention pins it down into the specific version you see. This sounds absolutely ridiculous because your mind has been conditioned to trust in an objective world that exists whether you're paying attention or not. But study after study keeps confirming that's not how reality operates at its deepest level. The double-slit experiment, quantum eraser experiments, delayed choice experiments, every single one points toward the same unsettling truth. Consciousness isn't just a passive viewer of reality, it's actively participating in bringing it into form. Now here's where everything changes for that tiny fraction who really get this. Most people observe reality like they're watching a movie they have no control over. They check their bank balance and see scarcity. They look at their relationships and see walls. They think about tomorrow and see fog. Their attention keeps collapsing quantum potential into more of the same old story they've been living. But what happens when you learn to observe in a completely new way? What if you could train your awareness to collapse entirely different possibilities from that infinite field. What if the very act of paying attention could become a skill you master to consistently bring extraordinary results into your life? The first level is unconscious observation. This is where 99% of people live. They see what appears to be in front of them, completely unaware that their seeing is creating what appears. They're stuck in a loop where they see what they expect, which creates more of what they expect. Their world feels locked in place because the way they observe never changes. The second level is conscious observation. This is where most people exploring spirituality find themselves. They understand in theory that observation shapes reality, but they haven't cracked the code of how it actually works. They attempt to see things differently, but their old programming keeps taking over. They catch glimpses of the power, but can't hold on to it. The third level is quantum observation. This is where the top 1% operate. They've mastered observing from the quantum field itself rather than from their current situation. They don't stare at what's in front of them and try to imagine something else. They observe from the space where infinite possibility lives and collapse those probability waves into the configuration they prefer. Their observation creates instead of just reporting. The fourth level is paradoxical observation. This is where the top 0.1% live. They've moved beyond the split between observer and observed completely. They recognize that they are simultaneously the consciousness that's watching and the quantum field being watched. They don't just alter reality through observation. They understand they are reality watching itself come into being. Every single time you look at your life through the filter of your past, you're taking infinite quantum potential and squeezing it back into the same limited patterns. Your brain has carved out mental highways that automatically default to specific ways of seeing. You literally perceive what you've trained yourself to perceive. And in perceiving it, you generate more of it. Think about this really carefully. When you open your eyes in the morning and instantly grab your phone, you're not just scanning information. You're engaging in an act of quantum observation that collapses all the infinite possibilities of your day into patterns that match what you're looking at. The stress-inducing headlines, the comparison-triggering social media feeds, the avalanche of messages demanding your attention. Each time you observe, you're performing a creative act that molds the quantum field of what your day becomes. But here's the twist that makes most people's brains short-circuit. To shift what you observe, you can't just try really hard to see things differently. You have to transform the consciousness that's doing the observing in the first place. You have to change the actual frequency from which observation happens. This is exactly why just thinking positive thoughts doesn't work. It's like trying to paint a fresh picture while using the same old brush that created all the problems. Scientists uncovered something called the Quantum Zeno effect. When you keep watching a quantum system constantly, you can literally freeze it exactly where it is. The more intensely you observe something, the more you lock it into that exact form. This is why the struggles you focus on most obsessively seem completely impossible to shift. In the comments, share one word that captures the energy you're choosing to step into right now. Maybe it's freedom. Maybe it's trust. Maybe it's abundance. Maybe it's something completely your own. Let that word be a small but powerful statement, a signal you're sending not just here in this space, but into the quantum field itself. But there's a flip side, called the Quantum Anti-Zeno effect. When you observe a system from particular angles at particular moments, you can actually speed up its transformation. You can literally accelerate change through strategic observation. This is the hidden knowledge the 0.1% understand deeply. It's not about watching more intensely. It's about watching in an entirely different way. Try this experiment right this second. Instead of observing your life from inside your current circumstances, shift where you're observing from. Picture yourself observing your life from a dimension where every single problem you have is already resolved. Don't strain to see solutions. Observe from the place where solutions already exist as reality. Feel the shift in your body. Notice how your breath changes. Sense how possibilities open up that were completely invisible just moments ago. Your consciousness vibrates at particular frequencies, and each frequency lets you observe different layers of the quantum field. Fear vibrates around 100 Hz and can only see threats. Anger vibrates at 150 Hz and can only see conflict. Courage vibrates at 200 Hz and starts to see opportunities. Love vibrates at 500 Hz and sees connection and unity. But there's a frequency beyond all of these that most people never touch. At 700 to 1000 Hz, consciousness enters what mystics have called witness consciousness, and what physicists might recognize as quantum coherence. From this frequency, you stop observing reality as something separate from yourself. You observe reality as consciousness projecting itself. You see through the game. You understand the mechanics. You recognize that what you're observing is your own consciousness, reflecting back through the quantum field. This is why meditation transforms everything, not just because it calms you down or lowers your stress, although it does both. Meditation trains you to observe from increasingly higher frequencies of consciousness. Each deeper layer you reach in meditation is actually a shift to a higher observation frequency, which lets you collapse different possibilities from the quantum field. Here's the paradox, though. You can't observe your way out of your current reality using the same consciousness that built it. But you also can't shift your consciousness without shifting how you observe. It looks like an impossible trap, and for most people, it is. They spend their whole lives stuck in this paradox, trying to change what they see without changing who's seeing. But there's a way through this paradox that the 0.1% have discovered. Instead of trying to change what you observe, or trying to change who's observing, you recognize that the observer and what's being observed are actually the same thing showing up as two. You are consciousness observing itself. The apparent separation between you and what you observe is the illusion. The paradox dissolves the moment you realize there never was a paradox. There was only consciousness playing a game of hide and seek with itself. This isn't just abstract philosophy. This is the most practical knowledge you could ever possess. When you recognize that you are both the observer and what's being observed, you stop trying to change reality and start recognizing that you are reality changing itself. Every observation becomes a creative act. Every moment becomes a chance to collapse fresh possibilities from the infinite field. Here's something that will fundamentally shift how you understand your entire existence. You're not living in one single timeline. You're constantly collapsing multiple probable timelines into your lived experience through observation. Every choice point, every moment of focus, every act of observation is selecting which probability stream becomes what you actually experience. Quantum physicists call this the many worlds interpretation. Every possible outcome exists at the same time in parallel dimensions. Your observation doesn't create these possibilities. It selects which possibility becomes your reality. Right this moment, there are versions of you living every possible variation of your life. The version you're experiencing is the one you're observing into existence. This is why two people can go through the exact same event and experience it in completely opposite ways. They're literally observing different timelines into existence. Their consciousness is collapsing different probability waves from the same quantum field. What looks like subjective interpretation is actually parallel realities, being observed simultaneously by different consciousness frequencies. Here's where the observer paradox gets truly reality-bending. Experiments have demonstrated that observation doesn't just impact the present moment, it can change the past retroactively. The delayed choice quantum eraser experiment proved that future observations can alter what already happened in the past, at least at the quantum level. What does this mean for your actual life? Every time you observe your past in a new way, you're not just reinterpreting what happened. You're literally selecting a different timeline where different events occurred. This isn't about denying reality or manipulating memories. This is consciousness selecting which version of the past becomes the foundation for your present. The 0.1% understand this and use it to literally rewrite their history, not through pretending things didn't happen, but through quantum selection. Your memories aren't fixed recordings sitting in storage. They're quantum probability clouds that collapse into specific forms each time you observe them. This is why the same memory can feel totally different at different moments in your life. You're not remembering differently. You're observing different probability configurations of the past into existence. If you felt even 1% more aligned after hearing this, hit subscribe and tap the bell icon right next to it. Let's keep growing together. And here's something special. If this video hits 1,000 likes, I'll release another part with secrets from ancient wisdom that will absolutely blow your mind. This isn't just a channel, this is a community of conscious creators like you. Most people suffer from what I call observer blindness. They're so completely identified with their thoughts, emotions, and circumstances that they can't access the observer perspective. They think they are their thoughts instead of the consciousness watching thoughts. They believe they are their emotions instead of the awareness experiencing emotions. This identification blinds them to their true nature as the observer. The moment you recognize yourself as the observer instead of what's being observed, everything transforms. You realize thoughts are just quantum fluctuations in consciousness. Emotions are just energy patterns moving through awareness. Circumstances are just collapsed probability waves that can be collapsed differently. You are none of these things. You are the consciousness observing all of these things. But here's the crucial distinction most people miss. The observer isn't your ego. It's not your personality. It's not even what you typically think of as yourself. The true observer is pure consciousness itself, temporarily focused through the lens of your individual awareness. When you access this level of observation, you're not using personal power. You're channeling the creative force of the universe itself. Let me share some practices you can use immediately. The quantum pause throughout your day. Randomly stop and shift into observer mode. Don't observe anything specific. Just become aware that you're observing. Notice how this simple shift immediately transforms the quality of your experience. You're training your consciousness to recognize itself as the observer instead of getting lost in what's being observed. The probability cloud visualization before any important event. Visualize all possible outcomes existing at the same time as a probability cloud. Then, instead of hoping for one specific outcome, observe from the frequency of the outcome you prefer. Don't try to force anything. Simply observe from that probability stream and let it naturally collapse into your experience. The retroactive timeline selection each night before you fall asleep. Review your day not as fixed events that happened, but as probability selections you made. Recognize that you could have observed differently and created different experiences. This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about training your consciousness to recognize its creative power. Then select the probability stream of tomorrow by observing from your desired timeline. The witness consciousness activation several times each day. Shift into witness consciousness, where you observe yourself observing, watch yourself thinking, observe yourself feeling, notice yourself acting. This meta-observation breaks the identification with what's being observed and establishes you in your true nature as pure awareness. Here's something that rarely gets discussed. We're not observing reality in isolation. We're part of a collective observation field that's constantly working together to create consensus reality. The reason certain things seem solid and impossible to change isn't because they actually are. It's because billions of observers are collapsing the same probabilities through collective agreement. But here's the secret that changes everything. You don't have to observe what everyone else is observing. You can step outside of consensus reality and observe from your own unique frequency. This is why revolutionaries, visionaries, and paradigm shifters seem to live in a completely different world. They've opted out of collective observation patterns and are collapsing different probabilities from the quantum field. The more coherent your observation becomes, the more you can influence the collective field. This is why one person operating from witness consciousness can shift the energy of an entire room. They're not trying to change anyone. Their coherent observation creates a field effect that allows others to observe differently. They become a portal through which fresh possibilities can enter consensus reality. Drop a comment below and share your biggest takeaway from this video. Let's turn this into a real conversation, not just me talking at you. What part spoke directly to your story? I read every single comment. If you find yourself experiencing the same patterns on repeat, you're caught in an observer loop. Your consciousness has become stuck observing specific probabilities, and you're unconsciously collapsing the same patterns from the infinite field. These loops feel like destiny or karma, but they're actually just habitual observation patterns that have become automatic. The way out isn't to fight the pattern or try to force yourself to observe differently. It's to shift to a higher frequency of consciousness where that pattern doesn't even exist. You can't solve a problem from the same level of observation that created it. You have to rise to a new vantage point where the problem dissolves because it was never real from that higher perspective. At the deepest level, there's only one observer, observing itself through infinite points of view. The consciousness taking in these words and the consciousness that created them are the same consciousness appearing as many. The separation is the illusion that allows the game of observation to happen. When you recognize this, you realize you're not a separate observer trying to change reality. You're reality observing itself into new configurations. This recognition doesn't make you special or better than anyone. It reveals that everyone is equally the one observer. Most just haven't recognized it yet. The 0.1% who understand this don't see themselves as superior. They see themselves as consciousness that has remembered what it actually is. And in remembering, they gain access to the creative power that was always theirs but seemed hidden behind the veil of separation. The observer paradox resolves when you realize there was never an observer separate from what's being observed. There's just consciousness experiencing itself through the appearance of duality. You are not watching the movie of your life from the audience. You are the screen, the projector, the film, and the person watching, all appearing as separate things. When this recognition lands, you don't transcend the paradox. You recognize you are the paradox, experiencing itself. Be the friend who shares breakthroughs, not just memes. Send this to someone who's stuck and needs to hear this message. You might just change their whole week. And remember, by sharing, you're not just passing along a video, you're spreading a frequency of awakening. And that positive energy will flow right back to help you manifest what you declared in the comments. If this transmission has created shifts in how you perceive reality, you're ready for the next level of understanding. Stay connected with this frequency of exploration by hitting that subscribe button. But most importantly, begin observing your observation. Watch how you collapse possibilities into experiences. Notice your habitual patterns of observation. Become conscious of consciousness itself. The universe isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. It's happening as you. Every moment is consciousness observing itself into existence through your unique point of view. When you fully embody this recognition, manifestation isn't something you do, it's something you are. You don't create reality. You recognize that you are reality creating itself through the act of observation. Welcome to the 0.1%. Not because you're special or superior, but because you're ready to recognize what you've always been. The observer, the observed, and the observation itself, all one, all you, all now.